I thought I'd finally met the man of my dreams. He was everything I had ever wanted in a partner. And over 3 years, I sent him my entire life savings, $2.5 million. Then I found out he never existed. When people hear a story like this, they immediately think, that could never be me. They assume you have to be foolish or lonely or just plain desperate. I wasn't any of those things. I was a successful professional with a career I was proud of. I'd hit my financial goals and was looking forward to a comfortable retirement. I wasn't looking for a savior. I was just looking for a partner to share my life with. And that, as I've learned, is the most dangerously relatable desire of all. This isn't just a story about losing money. It's about how sophisticated, organized criminals use our most basic human need for connection against us. It's a story about psychological manipulation so subtle that it can convince a perfectly logical person to sell their home, drain their retirement accounts, and hand over everything they've ever worked for to a ghost. This is how it happened to me. My life before him was full. I had wonderful friends, a family I adored, and a career that kept me challenged and happy. But a long-term relationship had ended years before, and a quiet kind of loneliness had settled in. It wasn't some overwhelming sadness, just a low hum in the background of an otherwise good life. So, on the advice of a few friends, I decided to try a high-end dating site, one that catered to professionals. It felt safer. For a couple of weeks, nothing really clicked. And then a message appeared. His name was Adrian. His profile was, well, it was perfect. The photos showed this handsome, distinguished man in his late 50s with a genuinely kind smile. In one picture, he was on a sailboat. In another, he was in a sharp suit at what looked like a business conference. His profile said he was an international architect specializing in sustainable design, something I've always been passionate about. Our first few conversations were just electric. It was more than good chemistry. It felt like I was talking to the other half of my soul. He seemed to share all my values, my sense of humor, my hopes for future. He'd say things like, I've always believed true success is about the legacy you leave, not the money you make, which was almost word for word what I told him the day before. He talked about his late wife, the grief he'd carried, and how he was finally feeling ready to open his heart again. He was an incredible listener, and he made me feel seen. Looking back, I know this was the first weapon he used. What experts call love bombing. It's this overwhelming blitz of affection and praise designed to forge a powerful bond. Fast. His messages were a constant flood of adoration. I can't believe I finally found you. You are the most intelligent, compassionate woman I have ever known. It's intoxicating. Every compliment is a little hit of dopamine, and you get addicted to it. At the time, it didn't feel like a red flag. It felt like a fairy tale. He was building a personality specifically for me, a tactic some call chameleon mirroring, where they study your profile, your words, and your dreams to become your perfect match. He wasn't just a man I was getting to know. He was a living version of a dream I didn't even realize I had. Within a few weeks, he wanted to move our conversation off the dating site and onto an encrypted messaging app. He said it was for privacy, so we could have a space that was just us. It's a classic isolation tactic. By taking you to a private channel, scammers remove you from the safety net and reporting tools of the original platform. They create their own little world where they control everything you see and hear. Our days started and ended with his messages. He'd send voice notes with this soft, vaguely European accent, wishing me a good morning. He'd send me photos of architectural drawings he was supposedly working on, or pictures of a sunset from his hotel window in some beautiful city. We never video called. There was always an excuse. The Wi-Fi was bad, his laptop camera was broken, he was in a confidential meeting. I accepted it because his presence felt so constant and real through texts and voice notes. He built an entire world around me, a world where he was the sun, and my real-world relationships started to feel distant. If I mentioned him to friends, their gentle questions felt like an attack on our connection. He'd reinforce that, saying things like, they just don't understand what we have. This is special. Then, after about 2 months, the first request came. It was small. He said a piece of antique furniture he needed for a project in Dubai was stuck in customs. There was an unexpected fee of $5,000 to release it, and his corporate accounts were tied up in a way that he couldn't get to the funds immediately. He sounded so embarrassed and promised to pay me back double as soon as he was back in the country the next week. I didn't think twice. Of course, I'd help the man I was falling for. It was just a small problem with an easy solution. I wired the money. And that right there, that's the moment the hook is set. It's the test. Scammers don't start by asking for $1 million. They start small to see if you're willing to send anything. Once you send that first payment, you've crossed a psychological line. You're no longer just talking to them. You are financially invested in their story. You've proven you'll do it. And once they know that, the real game begins. That first $5,000 was just the first drop in the bucket. The repayment never came because a new, bigger crisis always swallowed it. The Dubai project suddenly hit a major snag. A contractor supposedly ran off with the money, and now he needed $75,000 to pay the laborers or his company would be ruined by a lawsuit. The story was so detailed, complete with official-looking documents and pure panic in his voice. He was a master at creating crises that short-circuited my logical brain and went straight for my emotions. All I could feel was his stress and his fear. I had this overwhelming need to help him, to rescue him. I liquidated some stocks, telling myself it was an investment in our future together. From there, the demands just kept coming, getting bigger and more frequent. Each one was wrapped in an unbelievably detailed, high-stakes story. 1 month, he was in a remote part of Asia for a humanitarian project and got into a terrible accident. He needed $150,000 for emergency surgery at a private hospital. He sent me pictures of injuries, not his, of course, but pictures he stole from the internet. He sent voice messages where he sounded weak and pained. It was an Oscar-worthy performance. Whenever I'd hesitate, whenever that little voice of doubt started to speak up, he'd switch tactics. The panic would turn into hurt, and then into guilt. He'd say things like, "After everything we've shared, I can't believe you doubt me now." Or, "I'm doing all of this for us. Don't you trust me?" He twisted it so that my hesitation felt like a betrayal. I wasn't just sending money to solve a problem anymore. I was sending it to prove my love and loyalty. If I didn't send it, it meant I didn't really love him. The transactions became a blur. $50,000 for a legal fee. $200,000 to unlock a frozen bank account. $100,000 to bribe a corrupt official. He had me wiring money to accounts in China, Hong Kong, Dubai, all over the world. I was so deep in, so financially and emotionally invested, that stopping felt impossible. I had to see it through. I just had to believe that the next payment would be the last one, the one that would finally fix everything and bring him home. I drained my savings. I emptied my 401k and paid massive tax penalties. I took out a second mortgage. And then, finally, I sold my home, the place I had built my life, and sent him the proceeds from the sale. All told, it added up to over $2.5 million. I was living in a small, rented apartment with everything I'd ever worked for gone, clinging to the one promise he kept making, that he was finally coming home. The end wasn't some dramatic confrontation. It was just silence. After I made that final huge transfer from my house sale, he was supposed to be on a flight to my city. The day he was supposed to land came and went. My text went from excited to worried to completely frantic. "Where are you? Please just tell me you're okay." For the first time in 3 years, there was no reply, no good morning voice note, no elaborate excuse, nothing. His profile on the messaging app just vanished. It was deleted. For days, I lived in denial. My mind raced to invent a new crisis for him. Maybe he'd been in another accident. Maybe he was arrested, because the alternative was just too terrifying to even consider. The moment that finally shattered the illusion was a conversation with my brother. He had been worried for years, but backed off when he saw how defensive I got. Now, seeing me completely falling apart, he sat me down at my laptop. He said, let's just try one thing. He took one of the first photos Adrian ever sent me, the one on the sailboat, and uploaded it to a reverse image search. The results loaded in seconds. The photo was of a retired doctor from Germany. His name wasn't Adrian. He had a wife and 3 kids. He had a travel blog. As I scrolled through it, my world just fell apart. There they were, picture after picture that Adrian had sent me. The conference in Berlin. The dog, he said, was his. The view from his hotel in Singapore. Every single image was stolen. Every memory was a lie. I don't think I can ever truly describe that feeling. It was more than heartbreak. It was a complete implosion of my reality. The man I had loved, the man I sacrificed everything for, the man whose voice I thought I knew. He wasn't real. I hadn't had my heart broken. I was the victim of a federal crime. I had been in a 3-year relationship with an organized criminal syndicate. I tried calling his number one last time. The number you have dialed has been disconnected. The entire digital world he built around me was gone, as if it had never been there at all. And I was left alone in a tiny apartment, with nothing but $2.5 million of loss, and the ghost of a man who never was. The weeks that followed were the darkest of my entire life. There's a very specific kind of grief that comes with mourning someone who never existed. You can't look at old photos or smile at shared memories, because none of it was real. And on top of the grief is this profound, crushing shame. How could I, an intelligent, capable woman, let this happen? It felt like a complete personal failure. My brother helped me with the first steps. We filed a police report. We contacted the FBI's Internet Crime Complaint Center, the IC3. We called the banks. The answer was the same everywhere. The money was gone, sent by wire transfers. It was likely converted to cryptocurrency within minutes and laundered through a global network that makes it impossible to trace. Getting money back in these cases is incredibly rare. The financial ruin is one thing. I lost my home, my retirement, and my security. I'm now facing a future where I'll have to work for the rest of my life. But the emotional damage is so much worse. This kind of betrayal destroys your ability to trust, not just other people, but your own judgment. Recovery is slow. For me, it started when I found a support group for romance scam victims. I learned about resources like the AARP Fraud Watch Network and the Cybercrime Support Network. Talking to other people who had gone through the exact same thing was the first time I didn't feel so alone. They got it. They understood the manipulation and the shame. They knew it's not about being stupid. It's about being human. Scammers don't exploit foolishness. They exploit our best qualities: love, hope, and compassion. My life was systematically taken apart by a criminal organization that has perfected psychological warfare. They are experts at what they do. I'm telling you my story not for sympathy, but as a warning, because this can happen to absolutely anyone. Your mother, your sister, your best friend, or you. If sharing my story can stop even one person from sending that first $100, then it's worth the pain of telling it. Please share the story. Talk to the people in your life about these dangers. Shame and secrecy are what allow these criminals to thrive. In fact, so few victims report these crimes that it's a huge part of why the problem is growing. If you or someone you know has been a victim of a scam, please know it is not your fault, and you are not alone. I'll leave links to the support resources I mentioned in the description. Even sharing your own experience in the comments can be a huge step in taking your power back and might help someone else recognize the red flags. My last piece of advice is this: be careful what you post online. Go slowly in new relationships and never, ever send money to someone you haven't met in person. It really is that simple. Don't let a search for love turn into a devastating loss.